podcast. I'm your host, Rosario Felix, and I'm here with
MCJ Torres
and Jessica Bea.
Today we're talking about The Godfather, which is a 1972 crime drama film. We're just going to be adding some commentary, talking about what we thought about it, and yeah, so personally, for me, that was my first time ever watching that movie. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, well, I watched bits and pieces, but not like the whole thing like I did in class.
Right. Yeah, for me, I'm not really, those are not my type of movies. So if they weren't for like watching it in class, I probably wouldn't have watched it, but I thought it was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually, I didn't get to watch the beginning during class, but I've seen it before, and I really like it because it's a lot about like the mob drama, and I feel like I don't watch a lot of movies like that, so I was really interested when I watched this one.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting, I didn't know what I was gonna like get into, like I didn't know what I was gonna watch, but actually I ended up liking it because in the beginning I feel like it kind of went a little bit slow, but then towards the end is when it like everything picked up and I was like, oh wait, like what is happening? Like it was just a lot going on at the same time. So
Yeah, that's what I like about it. I thought it was gonna be boring, just like the beginning is really slow, and I left like during the middle, and I came back watching the end. It was really good.
yeah, it was actually a pretty interesting movie. I would recommend any of you to watch it if you haven't already. It's a bit slow in the beginning, but you'll end up being hooked up on it.
I feel like a lot of movies that I've watched in the past that start off slow, like pick up, and then it gets like super crazy or like there's plot twists, and I think that's like what makes this movie like really interesting is that if you hang on through like the beginning of it, it gets really good.
Mm-hmm. So what did you guys think of like the story overall? Like,
To me, I don't know, it depends. I like it, but then not because I'm in the new generation and that movie was made in the 70s and 80s, and I felt kind of suddenly be up that girl. And yeah, so it was good and bad. So that might take.
so while watching the movie, we did notice some concepts that we have learned in the class before, and I think it was even easier just because we learned about all this stuff now. Now when watching movies, I kind of like notice those things more than I would before I take this class. So for me, one of the first things that I noticed was the beginning of the film when they were kind of like zooming out and around the Godfather, the lighting, it was kind of, there's a lot of shadows on his face, and like it kind of gave, like you said, it gave kind of like an eerie like feel to him.
Like a suspicious kind of vibe.
Yeah, a dark.
Yeah.
Also kind of gave it like a powerful feeling to me. Like I was like, oh, this dude, he's like
a big deal.
He's like a big deal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like right off the bat you can instantly tell that this guy's like the main character and that there's going to be like a lot of stuff going on with him because of like the like she said, the lighting that goes on.
A lot of shadows.
Yeah.
Also, another thing that we all kind of noticed was there's a lot of B-roll in the film, especially just kind of like, because the film was set in New York, and then I think it was also set in Italy where Michael went after he shot. Yeah. So there's a lot of B-roll shots of like just the nature and then like different houses and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and I feel like they did that to make it like more cinematic kind of because a lot of the shots that they did do, they weren't just like irrelevant, they were like actually like really nice and interesting shots. And I feel like you don't really see that in a lot of movies like nowadays because they kind of just like want to get to the point, they don't really do B-roll. And like back then I think that they, used B-roll like a lot.
Right, and I think that's also kind of what made the film like slower was that they actually took their time to show like different. It wasn't all just action, like there was like a few slow scenes and stuff, which I feel like, again, like you said, it's not something that we see a lot in film here now, because I think it's kind of like they're trying to keep the attention, and I think that now people would think that, oh, doing B-rolls like that would make it kind of go slower and kind of like keep your attention away from the film.
And now to them, it's about technology, like in the past, we didn't have technology like today, like Facebook and TV, electronic, everything. They only have like basic technology, like camera, microphone, and
Yeah. They don't have any like special effects or
Right.
anything like
Yeah.
that. It's very just like simple, like if you shot it with your iPhone and like
Right, so what like
roll with
Yeah.
it.
to
Yeah.
they don't have Adobe Photoshop.
Yeah. They only Premiere Pro.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I believe it's a technology.
Yeah. And kind of going off of what you said about the things like you never noticed before, like taking this class,
Right.
I kind of feel the same too, especially with the B-roll, just because when I watched the film, I was like, okay, there's a lot of B-roll. But before, I feel like I would have watched a movie and I would have been like, okay, whatever, they're just showing me this. Like, I wouldn't have thought anything of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
that's
think it's
how-
really cool.
Yeah, that's also how I feel. Like, not even just with watching this movie, I think that with all of them, like, I'll catch myself once in a while being like, wait, there's this, wait,
Yeah.
wait, there's this. I know how to do this. You
Yeah.
know?
Me too.
I think
But
it's really cool about like learning all of these like concepts, just because they are like really widely used by like all kinds of directors and
Right.
producers. So it's pretty cool that we also are knowledgeable in that way.
Yeah.
So I was actually reading online the other day about some of like the fun facts about like the movie, and I noticed that they said that the director for the wedding scene, he let the cast act like freely and improvise like that entire scene, because they only had 2 days to shoot it. So the director like let them kind of like do whatever they wanted, and he just like filmed. He never like stopped them to say like, hey, don't do this or don't do that, and he did that just so he can keep it like very like flowy and more like make it more real.
honestly, to me, that makes a lot of sense because when I was watching that wedding scene went on for really long.
Yeah,
But
it
I
did.
was thinking the whole time, I was like, this kind of feels like a home video. Like, this feels like an actual, like, family
Yeah,
that
like I'm watching someone's
Yeah.
wedding right now.
So it felt so, like, natural to me, and I was like, oh, I feel like this is really, what's the word? I feel like this is really, like, precise and accurate to, like, Italian culture, maybe.
Yeah.
Like what a
That's
real
kind
wedding
of
would
what
be.
it felt like I was watching. So I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like it really did help like drive the story like visually, just because it just makes it more real. So
Right.
you like, it's not like staged and stuff. Like you see a lot of movies where there's like wedding scenes and like it's just like, okay, they're doing like very specific things, and here it was more like natural, I think. So I think it just like helped make the story more like come to life, kind of.
Yeah, that's one thing that I actually really liked, was that it felt really real and very like, I don't know, it felt really original. Like it just felt super, like it felt like something that would happen like in a regular family, just like more intense, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
we could see like the Italian perspective, like how they do weddings instead of like Mexican, African, Asian, we thought Italian perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we were part of the Italian
Yeah.
family.
So overall, I think the cinematography video was really cool, and obviously there were a lot of concepts that we learned about in class that kind of fit with this movie. But I also think there were some things, obviously, that didn't fit the concepts that we've been learning about, the rules kind of that we've been learning about.
Yeah, so I believe most of the scenes there are a lot of rules broken. So like the headroom, if you see like on some scene, the camera is cut into the headpiece. So I feel like the headroom broken.
Yeah, I also noticed a lot of, like he was saying, I noticed a lot of scenes where like it was cut off kind of like at the forehead too, and there was not much room, not much space here, which I do remember, like you said, I do remember learning about that as well. I would say that's one of the rules that was broken, I guess, but to me, I don't think there's any rules to break. I think that films, what makes them special is that freedom to like be able to do anything. It's all creativity to me, I feel like. So.
Does that also have to do with like the rule of thirds, or like the when like the character has like 2/3 of the frame that they're looking into? I feel like there's like, I think I noticed some of that too, as well as like the headroom stuff, but I thought that was pretty interesting because, like I said before, there are some things that we wouldn't have noticed before, but now we like notice it, and it doesn't look like as natural just because like half their head is cut off.
Yeah.
Right, but I think, like I said, I don't think that's what makes it doesn't make a film bad. It just kind of you kind of notice those things. But for you guys, were there like some things that like you're like, oh, this didn't really work out for me. I'm not really into this, or this is not really my type of thing. For me, personally, it wasn't anything like related to like how it was filmed. I thought it was actually filmed pretty good. I think it's just it's not my type of it's not my type of movie. It's not something that I would kind of choose to watch. I think overall, just the storyline, it was great, but just not great for me. Not my type of style of movie. So
yeah, I think for me, I like movies that kind of like jump to the point. There is sometimes when I watch movies and I do like the cinematography like aspect of it with like the B-roll and like what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But in this case, I feel like I was kind of losing interest like in the beginning of the film.
Right.
So I think it just like took a while to like pick up. And in other movies, I had stated earlier, like sometimes it's like a good thing because then the movie gets like super crazy or like whatever. But I think for this one, I think it could have just been like a little bit more like sped up or like a little bit less B-roll. But
Right.
I mean, the movie was still good. I think that was just like my least favorite thing about it.
And honestly, I think that has to do with kind of like the way we do film now. Like the way we're used to watching movies now is like we're always used to watching like so much action and stuff, and there's always something happening that's kind of like our attention is always grabbed. But I feel like movies in the past, maybe, it's not that I have watched a lot of movies in the past that are set in the past, but I think they're kind of slower, they're kind of, it's less action, less like in your face type stuff.
And I actually just went to the movies and I watched this movie called X. It's like a horror film, but it's set like from in like the olden days, like the 70s or 60s, and it kind of reminded me of like the same type of vibe. But even when they did have B-roll, there was like little like Easter eggs in the B-roll, like little like, oh shoot, did you see that or whatever. It wasn't just like they were moving the camera and you were just like looking at a random clock. Like there was like a reflection in the clock. So I think it's interesting like when movies do that, not as much as like, oh, here's just like this random clock. You know what I mean?
I feel like nowadays there's always just something there to look at. Which is why it's kind of tough to keep our attention on.
And kind of what we said earlier about the special effects and like all the editing like stuff that we have. Yeah, we don't really, I guess they didn't really have any of that stuff back then.
Right.
But I mean, for what they did have, I thought the film was really good.
Yeah. There one point, don't get me wrong, the movie was great, but
we're all saying that.
there like one thing I didn't like when I forgot what his name was, and he would be his wife, and that really got to me. So I don't know how that made you guys feel.
Yeah, for me that scene was honestly really hard to watch. Because it was so kind of like we don't see that as much here, and if we do, it's kind of like you kind of get a warning beforehand because it can be triggering to people. And so that's why to just see it like just so like naturally like thrown at you, I was just kind of like, whoa, like I didn't know. It was just like a really intense film for me.
Yeah. And I think there's other movies too where they're like showing a scene like that, but like it'll like pan to like just like the outside of the house and like someone screaming and stuff, so they don't really show it. And like then in this film it was very like
very obvious.
So
overall, I think the concept of this movie was pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting how Michael in the beginning, he was kind of rejecting his family, or like the way that his family was and how he didn't want to be like a part of that. But towards the end, we see him kind of feel like when the Godfather dies, he kind of feels like responsible for it and responsible for his family, so he kind of just goes into it.
And that like obviously makes sense, but as like an audience, I feel like me personally, I was kind of rooting for him to just escape like the family crime and just be like this better person. But then when you mess with this guy's family, like he's not gonna, you know, it was like his fate.
Yeah, and coming up then, and I believe he became the Godfather because at one point in the movie they killed they blew up his wife and he decided to go in the mouth to get like his revenge on the mouth. So I think that would make it better.
Yeah, I agree.
I think maybe in the beginning of the film, he kind of, maybe, well, I'm just thinking maybe his way, maybe he thought about it as kind of like, oh, you know, I'm not evil like this, like I don't do things like this.
Yeah.
As he was telling his, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or his wife, but I think that towards, like, when the film is going, he's realizing that it's kind of like, we're not just doing this we're doing this for family, like this is for our family and we're protecting our family, and he kind of realizes that, and I think that's when he gets kind of like some sort of pride in it, and he's like, you know, and after the godfather dies, he's like, you know, there's nobody else, it's my place to step in and take care of this family, because we obviously have a lot of enemies and a lot of people that, you know, want to threaten it, so.
And plus, I believe his family forced him to be the godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because even in the beginning, I felt like if they didn't go to the godfather, they went to Michael for like things that they needed to do. Yeah. So, I just think it was kind of like in his, I don't know, there was a word that you said, it was kind of like, he was just meant to be.
It was his fate.
It was his fate, yeah. It was basically just his fate.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think a lot of people would have been like, oh yeah, like good, you're gonna get revenge. But like personally, I just like how I just stated, I wish he could have just like, you know, changed the game for like his family or like himself, you know, because I do think he had like a lot of potential. I didn't expect the ending, but yeah, I mean, so as far as like for me, I kind of rate the movie like a 7 out of 10. I really like the old school stuff. There's like a lot of things that I did like, and like also some things that I found boring. Not that I didn't like, I just like thought it was a little bit boring. But yeah. What about you?
So for me it was like 5 out of 10.
I was gonna say the same thing.
The beginning is what? The beginning and towards the middle were kind of slow. Then all this action that I like, that's why I give it like a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, a 5 out of 10, just because it's, like I said, like it's just not my type of thing. It's not something that I would watch, but I think it's definitely a great film, and it's also been named one of the greatest films. So, obviously it's a very good film, but just probably it's just not
for us.
Yeah, just not for us.
Yeah, I'm sure some of you out there might really enjoy the film, but it wasn't our cup of tea.
Those who are into crime, drama type films,
mob.
This is definitely the movie
for you.
Yeah. But I was your host, Rosario Felix.
Jessica Vera.
Matthew Torres.
And thank you so much for tuning in to our MJR podcast. What did you guys think about the film? Let us know.